Welcome to Bhagavad Gita for Corporate Wisdom. I am your host, Life Coach Kishore Thakur. Today we explore Chapter 2, The Art of Steady Action, from Confusion to Clarity. I want you to imagine this not as a story from history, but as a coaching conversation between Krishna, the mentor, and Arjuna, the leader in crisis. Because at its heart, this chapter is about what happens when confidence collapses, when clarity disappears, and when even the best among us start asking, what should I do now? Before we dive in, take a deep breath. If you are listening, perhaps think of a situation in your life right now where you feel stuck, conflicted, or uncertain. That is your Kurukshetra, your battlefield of choice. When the leader freezes. When I first read this chapter, I saw Arjuna not as a warrior, but as a leader, one who is overwhelmed by emotions in a moment that demands strength. And isn't that familiar? A manager before a tough layoff decision, a founder before a major pivot, a parent balancing work and family. I remember coaching a senior executive once during a restructuring. She had to decide who would stay and who would go. She told me, I know what's right for the business, but I can't bring myself to do it. And I asked her, what is that makes this decision so heavy? She paused and said, because I care about them. That's when we explored a key insight from the Gita. You care deeply and still act decisively. When we confuse emotion with compassion, we freeze. But compassion, real compassion, includes clarity. Take a moment, think of a decision you have been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable. What if you could act with both heart and clarity? Remembering who you are beyond the role. As Krishna speaks, he does not start by giving Arjuna advice. He helps him remember who he really is. That insight changed me because I realized how easily we confuse who we are with what we do. I once met a retired CEO who said, for 30 years I was somebody. Now I don't know who I am. He wasn't missing work. He was missing identity. When your sense of self depends on your title, your peace depends on your position. But when your identity rests in purpose, you lead with freedom. Ask yourself, who am I beyond my role or title? If everything external were taken away, the job, the position, the recognition, what would remain true about you? That's where real leadership begins. Not from position, but from presence. Duty over comfort, the clarity of dharma. Arjuna says, I can't fight this battle. It is too personal. And Krishna responds, doing what is right won't always feel easy, but it is still right. I once coached a project leader who had to promote one of the two members, her best friend or a more deserving colleague. Her heart and her role pulled in opposite directions. We sat together and I asked, what is the most responsible choice you can make? Not the easiest one. After a long silence, she said, fairness. And that became her guiding word. She chose fairness, and her team's respect for her deepened. Even her friend, months later, thanked her for being honest. Think of a time when your role demanded something your heart resisted. How did you respond? What if clarity, not comfort, guided your next choice? Action without attachment. Then Krishna teaches one of the most powerful ideas I have ever come across. Focus on your action, not on the outcome. He says, you have the right to act, but not to control the result. When I first reflected on that, it hit me how much of our stress comes from trying to control what is not ours to control. I remember working with a sales director who told me, Kishore, every quarter I am anxious. Not about my effort, but about whether we will hit the numbers. We talked about shifting focus from numbers to excellence, from control to contribution. And when we did that, something changed. His anxiety dropped. His team's morale rose. And ironically, his results improved. Because when you act with full commitment but without fear, you enter a state of flow, what modern psychology calls peak performance, and what Krishna called yoga. Where in your life are you chasing results so hard that you have forgotten the joy of the work itself? Action without attachment does not mean indifference. It means inner freedom. It means doing your best and trusting the process. When I step back from this chapter, 4 key lessons stand out for me, and I invite you to reflect on them too. 1. See beyond emotions. Pause, breathe, and look at the whole picture. 2. Know who you are beyond the role. Your position is temporary. Your purpose is timeless. 3. Do what is right, not what's easy. Integrity may cost you comfort, but it earns respect. And 4. Act with focus, not attachment. Effort is yours, outcomes are not. Take a deep breath. Which of these 4 ideas speak to you most today? What one shift could you bring you closer to steady action in your work and life? You don't need to have all the answers. Even Arjuna didn't. But the moment he stopped resisting, started listening, his transformation began. That's what chapter 2 teaches us. Clarity does not come from control, it comes from consciousness. In the next session, we will go deeper into this theme, how to build emotional steadiness or the steady mind, and how modern leaders can embody that wisdom every day. Thank you.